released to inactive duty in the Navy in March of 1967 after entering into the Navy because I don't know what group it was called, came to our college and gave tests to us. I took them because I like taking tests. They measured me. I wanted to find out what the hell I was doing, you know. So they said, "Do you think logically?" So I said, "I don't know what took the test." Found out I did. It was a NSA, Defense Intelligence Agency, ONI. I don't know who actually did the tests. But when I got into officer candidate school the day after Labor Day in 1963, I found out I had two problems. I don't know how to obey an order that makes no sense at all. And don't really care if the person is senior to me in any way, shape, or form. I have a very loud laugh. And he was a super chief who thought he should have been at least a commander by then, navigator, and said that in one class they make us carry a little ruler in our pocket when we have watch duty and make sure that the Venetian blinds are exactly 3/4 of an inch above the lock, or we have to do extra duty. And I missed one, and he criticized me in front of everybody, and I don't like to be embarrassed like that. So I pointed out to him that if you can show me a Navy ship with a line that has Venetian blinds, I'll pay attention to the damn detail you say I forgot. And that Christmas, I spent a very lovely 4 days on guard duty while everybody else went home. I ended up doing a lot of that. But what I found out was I had a perfect 4.0 military grade at Newport. But I ended up with a grade of 2.5 because of, shall we say, attitude points. And below 250, you went to the fleet as a sailor. And I got exactly 250, and I knew what I needed to get exactly 250, and behaved myself for the last 2 weeks. They sent me down here to D.C. Now, I had, ever since Lloyd Bridges came on, I wanted to be a frogman in the underwater demolition team. But the bastards changed the rules on me and formed something called the SEALs. There was no underwater demolition team anymore. So I decided that I wanted to be a jet jockey and found out they don't make cockpits my size. Yeah, I was like, geez, I don't know what to do. Well, they sent me down here to a newly formed command called the Navy Command System Support Activity over in the Navy Yard, where they were developing the Navy's capacity to do things on things called computers for the first time. And they said that they were going to assign me to doing things logistically because, I don't know, I'd never even seen a computer. I was a history major, for crying out loud. But somebody found out the grades that I got in those damn tests, and they wanted me to be in intelligence officer type things. I had at one point an assignment to be on the floating command post in time of nuclear war. Never got to go. Damn. I was on a reserve destroyer that was put into mothballs up in Philadelphia. That took 3 days. But most of it was spent in rooms at the Navy Yard and then over in the funny farm on the other side of the river, doing things that they could not send me overseas for. The reason is I knew too much about what was doing and how it was doing, and they didn't want the technology drained from my head if I got caught. That's what I was told. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a much better story than them bastards won't let me do what I want. All right? Now, what I ended up with was, since 1963, since 1967, I got out and got into the computer field, and have been in it for 50 years, with a couple of years off here and there to go roaming and having a ball. 4 kids, all military families. Uh, we believe, sort of, talking to Tommy earlier about the Starship Trooper approach to society. You do your service or you don't get diddly. And I believe it with all my heart that citizenship depends upon the ability and the desire and the completion of service successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Tommy Davis. I left the Army this year as a sergeant, and my father was a Green Beret in Vietnam, a prisoner of war at least once that we know of. Phil's actually my godfather, and he looked after me after my father passed. I joined the Army as an enlisted man, was raised as an infantryman down in Fort Benning, and then spent a few years over in a 423 in the 5th Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division in Fort Lewis, Washington. And then I moved on to Special Operations because I was getting a little too bored sitting around waiting for the infantry to get their crap together and go deploy to Baghdad. So then I spent some time down in Fort Bragg with Special Operations, where I led a team of men into Haiti for the earthquake relief, and then following right after that, I went into Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom. And right after I got back from that, I came home, had about 3 weeks to get my bags packed, signed out of the Army, came over here, already applying to GW, and now I'm a student here, my first semester. That's it.
And they taught you how to be very succinct. My name's Ron Capps. I come from a military family. My father was in the Korean War on battleships and Vietnam War on little boats going up the river with guys dressed in funny suits, tiger striped suits. He was a boat driver for the SEALs. All of his brothers fought in the Second World War. All my mother's brothers fought in the Second World War. Both my grandfathers fought in the First World War. We've traced the family back to the Civil War. We were on the losing side in that one. Both parts of my family. And to the Revolution, we were on the winning side there, so win some, lose some. I enlisted in the Army when I was in 1983. I was 24 years old and I was bored with being a professional musician. Think about that. Yeah, we'll talk about the dumbass gene later. I enlisted as a private and was trained to be a forward observer, went to a light infantry unit. My section sergeant looked at me one day and said, "Capps, you need to become an officer." "Why is that, Sergeant?" "Because you're going to suck as an NCO. You ain't got enough patience to train officers, so go be one." I always listen to my NCOs. I got a commission, became a lieutenant, served in a cavalry regiment with the son of the General Patton, Major General Patton. Spent 9 years on active duty as a lieutenant and captain, rebranched into military intelligence, was trained as a human intelligence collector, case officer, went through the farm with the CIA, and spent 4 years running clandestine operations against the drug cartels in Latin America. Was bored with that. Went to graduate school, joined the State Department, legitimately the State Department, not the agency in cover, and found out that was really boring. So I stayed in the Army Reserve, and they called me one day and said, "Can you go to Uganda?" And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah, I'll go to Uganda." And I went to Uganda, and they were like, "Did we say Uganda? We meant Rwanda." So I got on a plane, flew us into Rwanda, and spent a while there, just after 800,000 people had been killed. Went from there to Kosovo and spent 2 years on the ground during the war. Some of that up in the mountains with the Kosovo Liberation Army. Went from there back to Rwanda while the Banyamulenge War was going on in eastern Congo. A couple of million people are dead there. Went from there to Afghanistan, was back on active duty in the Army. Took a team of human collectors and special operators into eastern Afghanistan. And maybe we crossed the border a couple times, I don't know. I can't read the map very well in the dark when your compass doesn't work. 3 for GPS, who knows? I don't know. So we were working for JSOC at the time. Came out of there. The State Department sent me to Iraq. I got a call from my assignments officer at the Defense Intelligence Agency while I was in Iraq. Said, "Hey man, you're on the list to go to Iraq." I said, "Just send me my shit. Mail it to me." Didn't go there. Instead, left Iraq, went to Darfur. Spent 2 years in Darfur. Was thrown out of the country because of stuff. The government there was actually reading our message traffic, and they figured out what I was saying about them and what I'd done to infiltrate some of their work. Went to Eastern Chad, where the rest of the Darfur refugees were. Spent a couple months there, and then I'd been treated for post-traumatic stress disorder while I was in Afghanistan. The security guys found out about all that, decided they were going to take the security clearance from me. As an intel operator or a diplomat or a field grade officer, you can't work without it. I retired, 25 years of service in 2008. Went back to graduate school to get a degree in writing. At 6:30 tonight, you'll hear me and some of my friends from the Veterans Writing Project, an NGO I founded. We're going to read some of our works. I am, other than that, disabled and unemployed. So, not a happy story. But it's not unusual for guys that have come out of these 10 years of war, especially a lot of people that were in service before that. So, we're not going to, clearly not have time to talk about these questions, but if you need help, don't be afraid to go get it. And it's on you. Thank you.
Great. A lot of history at this table, so I want to thank each of you for your service that you provided to this great country. My name is Alfred Hamilton. You can call me Al, but my parents are in a room. Call me Alfred. I don't know who Al is. So, I recently retired, Lieutenant Colonel, Medical Service Corps medic. Lived in a lot of places, and then I'll insert blah, 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 blah. So, I know in the sake of time, wanted to kind of end with, there's 3 things that happened to me over the past few weeks, which is a testament of this great nation. One, I retired, able to serve my country. The second thing, whether you like it or not, was able to serve on a jury, so did jury duty. And the third thing yesterday was voting. First time after being off active duty, being able to vote clearly, walk into the booth. So I thought it was, those 3 things happening was just a great testament of this country and the liberties that we have that we take for granted every day. So just like all of these folks on this panel, been to a lot of places, done a lot of things, and just really excited to be here and answer any questions that you might have.
I draw a path. Let's get on together.
All right.
I have a 6:30 car I have to pick up, so I have a big.
Well, and we have to be out of here at 6:30, so that the next group can.
We have to get the room set up for 6:30. Which means these tables have to.
should we stop now?
No.
Oh.
Oh, absolutely not. Just at some point, all you young, strong men, we're going to ask you to pick up a table and put it back and forth.
Well, that leaves me out.
You're the youngest and strongest of all of us.
We have, or I prepared some questions that I wanted to ask the panel, and that was when the panel only had 6 people on it. So that's part of the reason why. But I have to say that I think it's always valuable to hear people's stories. That's part of, at least, my experience in terms of healing. The more I told the story and the more honest I was with myself and the people around me, the more I felt like I had finally gotten home. And I just wanted to add that I did go back to Vietnam 4 years ago, and I did not get the same reception as you did in France. Although
Did you feel safe?
it took a couple of days, but yes. I mean, but that was me not feeling safe, not that anybody made me feel unsafe.
Okay.
But what I did find humorous was I had this notion that when I got off the plane, people would say, "Paul, you're back!" And nobody recognized me.
Another pretty girl?
Well, they wouldn't have been, well, never mind. But that was part of the issue is when I left there, I was 20 years old and time stopped as far as I thought Vietnam was. So I go back and anybody that was the age group that I would have been hanging around with, I forgot were now old farts. So nobody recognized anybody else. And most of the younger people had no idea about the war, which was also surprising to me.
Just like here.
So I wanted to, this is for anybody on the panel. What would you say were the biggest challenges you faced when you came back from whatever place you were in the world, psychologically, emotionally, and maybe how you first dealt with whatever was going on?
This is kind of a side issue. The point is, I was in New York City on my way home for 2 weeks to go to Japan to highlight the invasion of Japan when the war ended. And 2 weeks later, I was back at Duke, where I was the first one there as a vet, and so on and so forth. But pretty soon, 95% of the male population were all veterans. So it was a very cozy situation, and I never looked back at it.